Hello, and welcome to another episode of You Can Get There From Here. I'm Dr. Joe Moore, Chair of the Department of Communication and Digital Media Production at the University of Central Missouri, and I get the distinct pleasure of visiting with some of our alumni every week to talk about what they're doing now and how the program helped them get there. Our guest this week is Jacque Flanagan. Jacque graduated with a degree in digital media production with an emphasis in digital cinema. She worked with the Show Me Justice Film Festival, and that helped springboard her into a really cool internship. Jacque, so glad you're with us. How you doing?
Hello, Joe. Thanks for having me. I am doing very well. Very happy to be on. Appreciate the opportunity.
So you've done some really cool stuff since you graduated, got your bachelor's in digital media, stayed and got your master's degree. Tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, absolutely. So after finishing my education, I continued it on, especially specifically through an internship out in Los Angeles. So I got to go out there and like work on film sets. That production I worked on early on from like pre-production development, like writing the script, seeing it all the way through its production in LA and in Mexico, on to actually having the like Hollywood premiere at the Chinese theater. You guys are probably familiar with that, which is really cool throughout COVID, and then eventually like being streamed now like on Amazon Prime and Apple TV, wherever you can stream it, I guess. Yeah. So lots of cool things there working in the film industry that really kind of led me into my role now as a producer. I capture 360 virtual tours for colleges and universities at a company called EAB. We are formerly known as You Visit Studios, which a lot of folks are pretty familiar with in the higher ed space. So kind of leaned into my first gen, background of wanting to help others through higher ed. And that's what I do now as a, kind of combined producer and videographer, as well as like a semi-educator in the stories that we tell through everything that we capture. So, yeah.
So you kind of hinted at you were a first generation college student, yes?
I was, yeah.
Was it scary going to college for the first time without having family members to kind of guide you and tell you what to do? And if so, what'd you do when you got here to help overcome that?
Yeah, that is a great question. I wouldn't say that I was scared. I'm going to be honest. I was very excited. I've always been a huge nerd, like very education focused, like always super stoked about going to college and like had a path outlined for myself. It would be more like intimidating, I'd say, or like anxious about, like all of the resources that are out there and like trying to take those things on your own. But also like still wanting to have like the influence of your family or your parents to kind of guide you and what seems to be still true to yourself instead of just like what's out there and just kind of like going with what's available. So I would say definitely a balancing act there. But then as far as like working specifically with UCM, like I felt one, I had a like admissions representative. It was like a student, like a current student reach out to me and was like, hey, do you have questions about the school? And I think that that was really helpful. It like felt very genuine in the sense of like having somebody reach out and just say, hey, I've been in your shoes. Like, this is what like the real is as far as what's going on campus and what would make sense for you. And I always really appreciated that like openness and like honesty. But then getting into the program, I had some time to bounce around in gen eds and kind of get an idea of what I was looking for. And then, of course, fantastic advisors like would guide you as far as what's available and having a 4-year plan. I love 4-year plans. I don't know why. Like I mentioned, I'm a huge nerd whenever it comes to education. So I would definitely say the 4-year plan like was like one of my favorite things. I don't remember what it was called, like where you could go on to, like your my central and find,
Hmm.
I can like plug in my classes, but I did that all the time. I was constantly using that tool. Highly recommend that tool because I really wanted to design a degree that was like meant for me and what I wanted to do. And I think as first gen, I didn't want to feel like I was just falling into like this cookie cutter experience that other people could have. I really wanted to feel like it was, making conscious choices that accounted for my walk of life. And I felt like I did get that out of UCM and the programming and like the resources that were provided from everybody. So
The admissions people, they do a fantastic job, and the advisors, the success advisors, their sole purpose in, I won't say life, but
Right.
UCM life is to make
Yes.
sure our students are successful and they're guiding them through. And it sounds like you took advantage of the opportunities you had. So we talk a lot about, we're in a program that we're making stuff, we're producing, we're creating content, and we can teach you how to do that in the classroom, but you got to get out and practice it. So, talk a little bit about what you got from your classes, but then how you were able to go on and then apply that to some of the clubs and organizations you were involved in.
Yeah, for sure. That is a good question. I would say that I think a lot of our classes are honestly a lot of the classes in the DMP um, program are oriented to be hands-on, very practical. I think that they're well balanced too, though, as far as like in theory, what you need to know before you can go and practice that. I felt like a lot of our classes were either split for that like 1 hour class period where we'd be like learning a little bit and then like getting to apply that, like go out and take photos in some classes, or it would be split like across the week as far as like having that sense of, let's talk in theory and then like let's go practice it out in the field. And I think I took a lot of that, just like that approach on with like all of my education, even outside of the program. And definitely into like kind of just figuring out what I wanted to do. Just the whole entire nature of the program is very collaborative. Even having like your own like concentrations, you still interact, and like there's a lot of like I think cross like concentration work between, like audio, cinema, the theater students too, like working with them, bringing them in on projects was like a whole other, like cross departmental opportunity that we had. And so I took that approach in just my general education as far as internships. I bounced around a lot, I think, as far as what I was doing, very much a Jackie of all trades, just to kind of, enjoy, I think the opportunity to be young and to be able to kind of just try whatever you want, not feeling like you're making a mistake by doing one thing and jumping to the next thing. In production, there's so many different roles and so many different departments within those, for those roles to be in, that I knew I needed to try everything that I possibly could while I had the energy probably to still do it. Which I think also kind of aligns to what I'm doing now as far as a producer. I did have a little bit of a love for everything. And so I kind of have a role now where I get to have, my hand in a lot of different cookie jars now. But whenever I was younger, I did have a desire to go into like special effects and like do editing. And I don't get me wrong, still love it, still love graphic design stuff. But I tried it and I was like, I don't want to sit at a desk all day, like all the time, all day long, like 10 hours a day, like whatever it might be. So you have to go and try those things. So I definitely think like hands-on is the best approach to really understand what that's like. But from a collaborative place, like as you evolve in your career, you're going to be expected to do a lot of different things that are probably outside of your comfort zone. And being able to have the confidence in yourself and your ability and like your skills to be able to pivot whenever you need to. I think having that experience is what kind of like lays that foundation to be able to do that in a future role. And I think sometimes that's what sets a lot of people apart, is to be able to pick up where others have kind of left off, to really keep something going and keep the momentum to create something and make it happen, really work. So I would say definitely kind of hone in on that skill as well.
You know, you talked about getting to try a lot of different things and all the different roles. And you mentioned that you didn't want to sit at a computer all day. And I don't come from a cinema background. That's not what I studied. That's not really the area I teach in. But I realized the first time I taught our media aesthetics class, and one of the projects we have is storyboarding. And it occurred to me, somebody's making the storyboard. If you're a really good artist and you want to work in film, but you don't know that you want to be the cinematographer, and you don't want to sit at a computer all day and be the editor, and the audio side of it's really not your thing, there's something for everybody. You could
Yeah.
be the guy making the storyboard. You could be the person who's, Harrison Ford got his start. He was a carpenter on sets.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities, and I think you touched on that you got to practice a lot of those different things. We also kind of hinted early on about your experience working with the Show Me Justice Film Festival,
Mhm.
and get to kind of see behind the curtain as you met some of those filmmakers. And that led to a pretty cool internship for you. Tell us about that. Take us through that,
Yeah.
working with the festival and who you met and where that led you.
Yeah, for sure. So, in my time, Shannon Johnson was kind of spearheading the festival. I know things have probably evolved since then, but if he still is doing that, fantastic. So really, I think I was in initially one of like the audio production classes and had been brought up. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like something I should get into. Yeah, especially producing now, there's a lot of logistics involved. So I'm into logistics, but also I really wanted to take the opportunity to network too, and just kind of get out there and again, hone in on that like practice and that hands-on experience and being able to meet like real world filmmakers and do that is just like one I think so neat to see the art, but then also to like be there and talk with them and like understand their process of how they created the work that they created and being able to apply that to my own work and my own courses. It just felt like a really ripe opportunity. So volunteered and ended up meeting Anike Torres, a director. I actually ended up driving them to the airport. And so that's actually how a lot of the conversation started. Because in LA, like it doesn't take an hour and 20 minutes to get to the airport like it does from Warrensburg. So we had a lot to talk about and a long time to talk about it. And she ended up actually offering me a internship opportunity to come out to LA and just kind of work with her remotely too from Missouri. So there was like kind of this hybrid role way before COVID was even a thing. So it worked out well for me because one, living in LA is expensive and like trying to secure housing and do all of that. It can be a lot, but it was something that I was able to do, but also I was still able to continue that internship outside of just working in LA. But while I was there, I got to go to like a co-working space with her on a regular basis, work there and network with a lot of different folks. We were actively working on a feature film. It's now been, it's premiered and it's available and everything. But at the time, we were just writing the script, and a portion of it is in Spanish. And so I got to learn a little bit of Spanish, work on that, the IMDb page, as it's going into developing, like finding and casting, securing locations, all of the different aspects that you normally have for developing a film. I got to work through and a lot of promotional content, like marketing content for it too, which is really exciting. So I've seen that film all through its production from development, pre-production, actual production, like being able to be on set and like record and like capture. One of the scenes is like takes place during like May Day, which is like a laborers march day at the beginning of May, obviously in LA, where there's like over 70,000 people marching for rights and immigrant rights as well, and laborers' rights. And so, like, kind of being part of, I think, work that, does have a little bit of social commentary was really important to me. So, not only just working in the industry itself, but also being part of, this content that I know is going to make an impact and like change people's minds, their hearts and their minds. I really feel like it made a huge difference in my understanding and really like cementing what I was learning for me. So it was just one of those opportunities that I felt like it just kept giving and giving. Even whenever I was on site, like I got to, kind of pinch hit all of these different locations as far as roles would go, as what I was doing, from script supervising and like continuity, editing, stuff like that, to even just being like an assistant director, making sure that folks were in the right places at the right times. And whenever I wasn't on site, I was technically working remotely, but also I had the opportunity to meet up with like Grant Curtis, which was really exciting too. And I got to meet John Murchison, the VP of miniseries at HBO, which was like a huge contact to have. And it's just like so weird to have like all of these different people that you wouldn't think that you would normally have access to. That have gone on to work on, like new Spider-Man films, like for
Mm-hmm.
Marvel, and like John Murchison, his mentor is Spike Lee, so like all of these huge contacts that you wouldn't normally think that you would have access to, could just be one person away. And understanding the importance of having a network and not just the technical skills to be on set, I think, was one of the huge aspects of that internship that really put into, perspective for me, like half of what I'm learning is going to be in the classroom or like on set, as far as like that technical experience. But I would say the other half of it is also that social experience and like just interacting and growing your network and understanding how your skills kind of fit into the larger system of production or the industry that you're looking into going into.
So, what's the name of the film? You've mentioned it a couple of times. I want to make sure we get to
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah, it's America's Family. Sorry, I shouldn't be, like too modest. I should definitely promote it more. Yeah, it's America's Family. It's part of the Know Your Rights series, and it is a film about a family that is kind of all experiencing these different immigrant rights kind of violations. Like one gets deported, one has to seek Sanctuary, another one is Detained, and it's about essentially how each one of these family members goes across like their own immigrant rights journey. And there's educational information embedded in it that shows how to properly, handle each one of those situations. It is technically a fictional film, but it is based on actual stories that have come straight from like interviews from the border of different migrants and essentially how they've had to overcome, our legal system in America, to really, I think, become American citizens, but also just like in general provide for their families. So I really think it's very educational and hopefully of some interest for folks out there.
All right. Well, we're going to have to check that out. Now, the other thing we talked about is you went ahead and stayed and got your master's degree. You had a graduate assistantship. Tell us about that experience as a grad student and as a GA, and how that helped you into your career.
Yeah, for sure. I love the grad program. I'm going to be very biased. Like I'm very much a Ginny at heart. And so I felt like it just made the most sense for me to go straight into my graduate education. I know that that's not always the path that makes the most sense for everybody. So I definitely recommend folks, seeing what makes sense for them. I wanted more theory before I went into my own like kind of practice of how to approach things. So I did move forward with getting my master's in communication, and I felt like it was something that I needed, not just as like a first gen student, but also as like a woman of color. Like I felt like I needed more time to really evolve as a professional and really make sure that I had the experience that I needed to kind of come out and be able to say, oh, yes, I have a degree, but also I have all of this experience. And I felt like being part of the graduate program allowed me to do that. As the managing editor for the Mule Skinner, I like went directly into kind of working full time. It felt like, along with my classes, to manage a group of like 5 to 7 editors. And also a biweekly newspaper, which kind of evolved and changed from like its whole other thing into a like online platform as well. Under my time there, or during my tenure there. And I just think that being able to have that like hands-on, like collaborative experience with those editors and that like management or like leadership opportunities that I had consistently through grad school, really put into practice all those things that I had learned in my bachelor's program, but also what I was learning actively as far as communication goes and like the forms of communication. Really because like communication isn't just like verbal and, visual, and it's all of those things like that are in between. Honestly, the things that aren't really as much said versus the things that are said, kind of thing. And I just felt like I was able to apply all of that in one place, and kind of this space that had pressure to it, but also not the professional pressure that you might have, managing multi-million dollar budgets, that you do eventually get into whenever you're producing, or like especially whenever it comes to films. Like a no budget film is $1 million, so once you start to
Wow.
get up there, and have to manage these budgets or manage these teams and what they're doing, like you have to be able to make choices, and kind of like this revolving door of information. And I felt like being at, I don't know, the Mule Skinner, it just was like 24/7, news information, but also it was, 24/7, communication, managing teams, managing your bandwidth, and managing a budget too, if as far as advertising goes, but also managing the education of other people. Sometimes, even though that wasn't necessarily my full-time role, you still understand that the roles that those other people have, like it's not just the job that they're doing or that you're working with them in the job that they're doing. Like that's totally their life and like what they're getting out of it. And you want to make sure that they're investing their time and their energy in somewhere that really makes the most sense, and that you guys are all kind of working in a common goal together. And I think that that's really where your success comes from too, is like that commitment of the people that you're working with. And you have to kind of find that and be selective about it with the other work that you do. So I felt like my whole grad experience was just like one that I look back on like very fondly, because it really helped define me as a person and kind of what my purpose was, and what my purpose would be in the work that I would like later on find now, which, like I said, I work in education still, still do like some type of filmmaking with inside education. So I feel like I still have purpose there. And I still work with a lot of groups, a lot of teams. That's like, again, a revolving door of crews, of editors, of other producers that I work with, of photographers, of partners, and like clients and stuff that we manage. And just knowing that communication is the foundation of all of that, it made sense to go into a graduate program based on comm. But I think that everybody should, test the waters, feel, see what makes sense for them and what feels right. Go out there and gain some experience, come back and like be able to supplement that with more theory, but also, set yourself up right with a good foundation of understanding what you need to go into the real world with as well. And just make your own path because, that it's what's right for you, really.
Well, it looks like and sounds like you took advantage of everything you could here at UCM with your undergrad, with your graduate assistantship, with getting involved with clubs and organizations, with doing the graduate assistantship. You made a path and you
Yeah,
followed that path and done very well for yourself. So I'm very proud of you. What
appreciate it.
is next on the horizon for Jacque Flanagan?
Yeah, that is a great question, Joe. I'm still figuring it out. I just recently moved, so very excited about that. But like I said, I work remotely. I love the job that I'm in now. I get to travel all the time, like 6 to 9 months out of the year. So I'm sure just probably like adding more countries and more states to that list is my next big goal. But also, again, I really do love the impact that I know that I make with my work. So I probably will stay here for at least a few more years, for sure. A lot of my coworkers have worked here for at least a decade or are coming up on that. So I don't know. I might try to break one of their records. I like the work that I do as a producer. But I would say probably if I had to leave and I would have to go and do something else, some type of like creative direction, or like some type of creative director or manager along those lines, just because I like, kind of seeing that behind the curtain
Hmm.
kind of thing. And I mentioned Marvel earlier. I've always been a huge nerd and like a huge comic book fan. So I don't know. There's a lot of new things coming out with Marvel and like their new phases that it seems like they're getting back to their roots. So who knows? I might end up in Atlanta at some point and do some producing over there.
Nice. That would be
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, our current students hear from their faculty all the time.
Hmm.
I want them to hear from one of our successful alumni. What advice would you give to a current UCM student? And what would you say to a high school community college student thinking about coming to UCM for digital media or to an undergrad student thinking about going for their master's degree? So, two parts to that question.
Gotcha.
What would
Yeah.
what would you say to a current student, and what would you say to a prospective student?
Okay. To a current student, I would definitely say that like we said like probably the theme of my whole spiel has been like build your own path. Definitely use your 4 year plan. Like take advantage of that. Like design your degree. I'd say for me, like I really took advantage of the resources that were out there because one, I wasn't sure about what they were as being first gen. So even if you know what they are, try it anyways. Because you never know what you're really gonna get out of it. And even if you don't get what you want, you still get experience, which is always good. And then just keep trying different roles, try whatever you can, build relationships. Network is like a huge thing. I think being collaborative is the most like thing I could emphasize. You're naturally going to kind of do it just because like that's how classes are built. But um, funny story, I actually recently went back and looked at Central TV, the YouTube channel, and like some of our old work that's been posted there. And I'm just so fond of that stuff because, it was the connections that I got with like my classmates. And it's just a cohort of people like they're the only people that are going to ever understand like that time in your life the same way that you will, and just take advantage of that and really enjoy it and like make as much art as you can, get as much experience as you can.
Yeah, you're not
um
doing this in a vacuum. You've got a team of people around you to support
yeah.
you and help you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I cannot emphasize that enough. Like make as much as you can and take advantage. Like every assignment, it's not an assignment. Like that's your portfolio. So what are you making? And like make it for yourself.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, because I look back at that stuff and I'm like, oh, I worked on all this stuff with all these other people, and it's a lot of their work because I was never the idea person, but I was like, I can come up with the ideas to get it done. And which I still put my name on that work because I'm still very proud of how it came
Mhm.
together. And that's still as much of a contribution as anybody else. So like figure out whatever your role is on that project, give it your all, and do that over and over and over as much as you can while you're in the program. Um, and then I'd say for prospective students, because I have been to a lot of campuses, like I'm making virtual tours. We have over 800 partners. I've been to a lot of campuses, like over 40 states. And I've seen a lot of programs. There is not a program like UCM out there. I feel like the professors are like just so genuine. I've never found like a sense of community like I have at UCM. or like a sense of hospitality like I have in Missouri, like in general. Like that's very hard to find. It's very rare. And I would say that this program, one, it is going to be the professors that really set it apart. So go and meet the professors, like go and visit campus, see, like the resources and the spaces that you're going to be working in. But know that like programs are not just like their lab spaces. It's going to be the people that you're going to meet there. And really make sure that you connect with them and that they're the right people for you. And then one, know that you have the resources that if you feel like a program doesn't meet every single one of your needs, that you can build it. Like if you want to learn more about, film, but also about distributing film and working in marketing, go and get a minor in entrepreneurship, like go and do the graphic design degree or like the minor in graphic technology so that you can, learn how to do special effects. You want to work with actors and practice your directing skills, then, go and take a class in theater. So you have all the resources that you need there. And you have the people that are like willing to help you really design a degree that's going to create an education for you that you can take and do something with and contribute to the world. And I think that that's definitely worth it. And a lot of universities offer those programs, but not a lot of them, I think, have the same impact that UCM does, coming from somebody that has been to a couple of them.
Well, Jacque, I'm glad that it made an impact on you. I'm glad that you took the lessons, that you took advantage of the opportunities, and you've done some wonderful work, some really exciting opportunities for you. So, congratulations to you. Thank you so much for being on today, and do not be a stranger. And guys, get out there and watch America's Family.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And thanks to all of you for tuning in today. Remember, you can catch every episode on our YouTube channel through our UCM Media Network. That's youtube.com/UCMMN. You can also catch every episode on Spotify. Thanks again for listening. Again, this is Joe Moore reminding you, you can get there from here. Have a great day.